Can LSU take it to USC? Is Georgia really going to blast Clemson by multiple scores? There's a ton to look at in the SEC's opening weekend. Time to get the squad together.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into today's show. Today's episode is presented by 5 Hour Energy. Fixes tired fast with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB. Get 20% off your order. That offer only valid until September 30th. On one order, it cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Welcome in, everybody. It's our SEC squad. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we get you ready for week one of the SEC, which should be a wild week. And we welcome in our panel of guests as they join us. We've got Zach Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn, Brandon Olson, host of Locked On Gators, Stephen Willis, host of Locked On Ole Miss, John Miller, Locked On Mizzou, Jay Smith, Locked On Sooners, Matt Moscona, Locked On LSU, Jonathan Davis, Locked On Longhorns, Clint Chamblin, Locked On Bulldogs, and Chris Marler, host of Locked On Gamecocks. My goodness, we have got a full house today and plenty to discuss, gentlemen. How are you?
Great. All at once. Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I wanted in a full panel response. All right, guys, we're going to jump into it and make some predictions. Just what's a prediction about your team and the game they're playing this weekend? We're not asking for scores. We're just give me a prediction of something that's going to happen in your game this weekend. Zach, let's start with Auburn because they got a cupcake.
Yeah, hosting Alabama A&M. Not Peyton Thorne starts his Heisman run. No, I'm kidding. I think we feel hope on the Plains for the first time in several years. I think we get a feeling of hope, what could look like a competent, modern-day college football offense returning to the Plains.
Brandon Olson, Florida Gators, they got Dead Man Walking and Billy Napier. What's the vibe this weekend?
That the Florida Gators are going to start this year with a ranked win. They're going to start off 1-0 against top 25 teams. Who'd have thought?
Would certainly be a huge feather in his cap knowing what's coming on the back end of the
Shake your head no all you want, boys. Shake your head no all you want. That's fine. You'll find out.
I got coin on that. Let's go.
Yeah, you'll find out.
Stephen Willis, big year for Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss Rebels, preseason, ranked as high as they've ever been, and man, oh man, a tough one against Furman out of the gates.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to really be great for the fan base because they get to see that number one transfer class on the field. I do not think it's going to be a very tough game, but it should be a whole lot of fun to see the Rebs because they haven't seen them since Penn State.
John Miller, quick thought. Mizzou, they get a Thursday night opener against a cupcake, but Eli Drinkwitz and company, they're feeling really good. Preseason number 11, and number 10's already taken an L.
That's right. Yeah, we move up a spot, haven't even played a game. You got to love that. But the thing with Missouri in week one, I think Missouri has one of the best offenses in the country, or it will in 2024, but they don't run at warp speed. So this 47.5-point spread, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I think Missouri wins easily, but not by that much. So take that advice for what you will.
Marler over there in Columbia. It's Old Dominion. Couldn't even point out where Old Dominion is on a map, but the Lenore Sellers era gets underway.
They're the Monarchs, so I'm pretty sure they are over in England, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't done a ton of research this week. No, I think the one thing I'm looking forward to the most outside of Lenore Sellers, that defensive line and the edge rushers. I think it's a unit that struggled a lot last year. But Old Dominion gave up like 61 or 63 sacks a year ago, so they might be able to reach like a quarter of their season output a year ago in game one.
It's going to be interesting to see how good Lenore Sellers is for the Gamecocks. Clint, man, Georgia, they're going to keep this train rolling, and they get a tough opponent in Clemson, and yet here they are, been sitting about 2 touchdown favorites over them and a really good Clemson team.
Yeah, that's right. I think the thing we're looking forward to is Georgia regaining the defense that we had before the last 2 years. We slipped last year, according to Kirby standards. I think we're going to see back to what 2, 3, 4 years ago defense was like for Georgia. Be excited for that. Clemson doesn't have the offense that they should be having, so I think this is going to be a good time for Bulldogs fans everywhere to see the new and improved defense that Kirby Smart has.
Yeah, but they give up like 20-something points a game, and suddenly they were slipping defensively there at Georgia. Jonathan, Longhorns, they get Colorado State, not the toughest opponent to open up with, but a good kind of easy way to start the season 1-0.
Yeah, a couple bold predictions. I don't think Texas will go to double overtime with Colorado State like Colorado and Deion Sanders did last year. And the most popular player on the team, Arch Manning, will score his first touchdown in a Texas jersey this Saturday. A couple bold predictions. Texas will have a lot of fun on the field in DKR this weekend before things get tough next weekend at Michigan.
Matt Moscona, LSU. I've got a prediction. This will be one of the rare cities where the LSU faithful will not drink the city dry before the game starts.
Maybe not the city, but the stadium. I wouldn't rule that out. I think for all the talk about Garrett Nussmeier and the receivers, I think LSU is going to run the ball more than they throw it this weekend. You want to protect a bad defense and try to get them off to a good start. You run behind your big, very talented offensive line. I think LSU tries to shorten the game, and they run it a lot on Sunday night.
Yeah, everybody expecting a shootout there would certainly be Lincoln Riley wouldn't like that if LSU plays keep away and just eats the clock and runs the ball.
Take the under.
Jay Smith, Oklahoma, they got a Friday night affair against Temple. Not the greatest opponent, but first time we're going to see that SEC logo on the field at Oklahoma.
Absolutely. So for me, I'm expecting a couple of things. One, the defense to score more points than Temple in this game, since, that's the one thing it's the main focus of. Shout out to Brent Venables trying to pull off what he did at Clemson. And then the next expectation is that we run for more yards than we pass, kind of proving that offensive line is going to be SEC ready.
Does anyone have a prediction about another team this week in the SEC they want to share? Man, everybody got quiet.
I like Brandon's prediction, actually, that the Gators take down Miami. I think for the last few years, it just seems like, hey, Mario Cristobal, hey, this is the year. It seems like everybody's discounting the Gators because of that schedule. I'm telling you, in the swamp, opening week, not exactly hard to imagine an upset there. That's not even much of an upset.
33 straight wins there.
I like it. I like the call.
Yeah, I think the SEC kind of sticks its chest out a little bit and says, we're still the team on top. I think Florida takes care of business against Miami, and I think LSU makes a statement against USC this weekend.
Let me add to the hate and be a hater here, right? I think LSU goes out there and blows the doors off of USC. And as much as Matt even said that the defense isn't that good, I think they show that they're a lot better than people anticipate.
I think they'll be better than they were a year ago, no doubt. But that don't take much when you're the worst defense in the history of the program. So,
touche.
They'll be better, but yeah, how much better?
One spot better is still better.
No doubt. They'll be better than one spot better. But I don't know, man. The Lincoln Riley thing still, I think, spooks a lot of people here because his offenses have always gone. I mean, you look back at ever since he showed up at Oklahoma, he's had one season where his offenses have averaged less than 40 points per game, and it was his last year at Oklahoma. They averaged 39. So they score, but you got to run the ball and control the clock.
The good thing there is that he's breaking in a new quarterback, so we don't know what Moss is. He whiffed on his 5-star quarterback, so we're got to see what that's actually going to look like. I don't think he's going to be able to dance the same way that Caleb Williams was last couple of years.
I'm just curious. You said that Oklahoma's going to run the ball against Temple, proving they're SEC ready. What the hell are you going to learn running the ball against Temple?
Just running the ball in general.
I'm glad you asked that. Is he ready against Temple?
That John Chaney defense they run, Matt, is going to be tough.
Hey, man, you never know.
Zone, yeah.
They may pull out the Matt Rule version of Temple in that game. So
look, all we know is DeMarco Murray won't be on the sidelines because he's been out here cheating, texting recruits when he wasn't supposed to be.
Hey, man, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Okay, let's get it out of this. I was anticipating Oklahoma or Texas saying something like SEC ready at some point. It was a drinking game to see who was going to do it first, and the run game for
You're
SEC
welcome.
ready is right there.
Well, Texas only talks to Texas, so it wasn't going to be them for sure.
Fair point.
That's a great drinking game for this weekend. Watch the Texas game, watch the Oklahoma game, and how many times the broadcast says, "Oh, these guys are SEC ready."
You'll be dead by the first change of possession.
I say first drive, you're done. You're cooked.
Yeah. And how much of a trap am I having right now looking forward to the Vandy Virginia Tech game?
I think that would be the one that we could stick our chest out the most in the SEC if Vandy beats Va Tech.
Yeah.
Well, look, Diego Pavia got the big win over Auburn last year. I mean, anything.
What are we doing? Why do we always got to bring that up when we talk about
people forget?
Does anybody think Vanderbilt's going to win that game?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. I'll just making sure.
But Clark Lee is calling the plays on defense now, so I don't know if that helps at all.
Virginia Tech returns 21 starters. They got 5 senior starters on their offensive line. Like, that's a sleeper in the ACC that nobody's talking about.
Take a flyer for
top
them
5 in the country in
conference.
returning players.
Like
so yeah, they're definitely one team to keep your eyes on.
You got a bunch of juice in that bet right there for season win totals as well.
Way to go, Steven.
Oh, agree.
Sorry for everyone else's response. I was on board.
All right, fellas, we've got some big games in the conference we are going to dive a little bit deeper into. So let's dive deeper into Georgia and Clemson and LSU and USC. The SEC squad talking more ball next. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. And look, let's be real. You're going to be sitting around the house watching a lot of games all weekend long. Grab yourself a 5 Hour Energy shot to stay alert, to watch all your favorite games. Or if you stayed up late to see that intense overtime game, you're going to need that 5 Hour Energy shot in the morning to start your day. So look, stock up on 5 Hour Energy with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry. There's a flavor for everyone. You could try them all. And on their site, even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You could choose the flavors, and it is delivered right to your door. Go check them out right now. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5. 5hourenergy.com. Get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's going to get you 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, but go to 5hourenergy.com today and get started. Continue on here, getting ready for a big week 1 in the SEC, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper to some of the bigger matchups this weekend. And we got to start with the early one. This is the one we'll get at 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern. It is Georgia and Clemson from Atlanta. Any other year, this would be an awesome matchup. The line would be like 6.5, and you'd be like, hell yeah, brother, let's lock it in, rip the knob off. But Georgia's been dominant the last 2 years. Clemson maybe been not as dominant. So Georgia's been sitting as a 2-touchdown favorite. Clint, give us a breakdown here. Are you nervous after watching Florida State lose to Georgia Tech as a double-digit favorite a week ago? Are you nervous at all for this one?
Look, there are two things that are true. Dabo Swinney is not a good coach, and that doesn't mean anything at Clemson because you can still win games there with a good defense and a good running game. This is what travels well in college football. And they got rid of the lesser running back via graduation and draft, and they actually, I think, improved in running back, and they have a talented offensive line, a couple of unknown wide receivers, and a defense that returns a lot of very, very high caliber, high ceiling players. So yes, nervous is the case because all of a sudden you look at Georgia and two running backs, one being Cash Jones might lead this team in rushing attempts this game. And that's not a joke. And I'm not being facetious and I'm not like that might be real. If that's the case, holy geez, yeah, Carson Beck on your shoulders right away. You said you want to go to New York, go out and prove it. All of a sudden things get a little sideways and get really weird with a good, very, very talented defense and a good running game that can propel. So, of course, every single game, any other season, 6.5, something like that is true. This is point spread I'm not touching because I don't like it to begin the season. We saw what happened last time Clemson and Georgia played. It was a very, very close affair. Went to turnovers and DJ Uiagalelei not knowing how to throw the football, which continued even into this year. But, yeah, of course, I'm looking out for this game, and I'm not taking Clemson lightly at all.
Moscona, are we getting too much Georgia fatigue? Because it's like every poll has been Georgia number 1, Georgia's the pick, Georgia. Like, are we overrating this Georgia team a little too much?
No, they deserve it until proven otherwise. I mean, they now see if they can maintain it for as long as Alabama did, but they're at the Alabama standard where it's just default, put them in there until someone beats them. I mean, do any of us believe that if Georgia had gotten in the playoff last year, that they wouldn't have won it? I mean, I do. I think they would have won it. So, no, it's fatigue is the conversation you have about Notre Dame. Fatigue is the conversation about a program that's not really a contender that everyone tried. Miami. I'm so sick of hearing about Mario Cristobal in Miami. Like, he stinks. I watched him win one game at FIU. Like, That's what I'm sick of. Like, do something and then I'll talk about you. But Georgia deserves to be talked about. Like, they beat everyone and they're the standard. So if you want to win, you got to beat them.
Marler, I know you hate both these teams. So your thoughts?
Well, I'm still trying to move past you saying rip the knob off. I'm scared to Google what that means later. I will say I think there's still time for this line to come down because Georgia could lose at least 2 to 4 or 5 more players before the weekend if they're still behind the wheel of a car. So we never know. I think that Clemson is going to be good defensively. I think they're going to be very, very average offensively. And I think that Georgia goes into this place, which has been a house of horrors for them when they play one specific team, but it hasn't been otherwise. And they are going to have a massive chip on their shoulder and honestly do what Florida State, I think we all thought they were going to do a week ago, but probably worse to this Clemson team because nobody motivates their team better or more than Kirby Smart. And they know that in that building 8-9 months ago, they were 3 points away from having a three-peat. And they are going to come in there, I think, and beat the brakes off Clemson.
Let's get John Neighbors in here, host of Locked On Razorbacks. John, you got a basketball program that's taking advantage of recruiting and NIL and all this. Why has Dabo not done, the whole NIL thing? Has he made a mistake? Because Clemson, it feels like they've been knocked down a peg here the last couple of years.
Well, when you don't have the chicken man and John Tyson like Arkansas does, you got to improvise, I guess. But it's kind of funny because, as we get closer to the season, just being actually 2 days away for Arkansas or just a couple days away for Arkansas, it's kind of at the point now where people are tired just of talking about everything, but they're also not excited about this game, it being in War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock. LSU knows all about that dump. And so it's a tough spot. So it's like people are kind of just hoping that this game gets over with quickly with no injuries and they win, and then they can just move on to the other really great city of Stillwater the next weekend.
Yeah, and the good news for Arkansas is you play on a Thursday night, so you got all weekend to watch all the other games and kind of get a scouting report on some of these other teams that you guys are going to play. Stephen Willis, quick thought on Georgia. I mean, you guys play Georgia later this year, so a little scouting report for you guys.
Yeah, you get to see exactly what they have, and what they have is a top 100 ranked defense on the back, all top 100 players all over the field, and they're going to be scary for anybody watching them. The one thing that I know about this game, though, is Tyler from Spartanburg kind of broke Dabo Swinney.
Tyler
broke him in half. Bad.
Mm-hmm. Spencer McLaughlin, host of Locked On College Football. Quick thought on Georgia Clemson. Is this one close at all in your mind? You're an unbiased, objective person here.
Yes, I think I am the least biased person here on this particular matter, apparently, because Clint has got some strong statements about the only coach other than his own who has 2 national championships, because apparently that guy's not any good as a football coach, which is incredible. So I wonder what Kirby Smart is at this point. But I think that for Georgia, they have been my number one team for a long time. I have not seen anyone make a move to knock them off of that preseason pedestal, because this is one of the best rosters in the country. You have got an incredible coach. You've got a great quarterback, maybe the best in all of college football, in Carson Beck. And the reason I continue to buy into Georgia, Chris, is the last time I picked a champion for this reason is the only time I've ever correctly picked a national champion in March Madness. North Carolina, 2016, goes to the national championship game, men's basketball, beat by Villanova and Chris Jenkins at the buzzer. They return most of their core and their head coach. They were so close, and they came up just short, and then they went back and they rolled and they won the national championship. I think that's Georgia this year. So you give me the team, the roster, the coach, the motivation. They've been there before. I love the Bulldogs, and I like them against Clemson, who I think is fine. I don't think Clemson is going to win the ACC this year. I do think they're a good team, but I'd take Georgia to cover that number.
All right, quickly, we need to...
Gordy, if I can, just one quick point about that. Spencer, I said the same thing about Alabama 3 years ago when they lost the national championship. They came back, and being a lot of us, I know, we're at SEC Media Days, and talking to guys like Will Anderson and Bryce Young, those guys were pissed, and it looked like they were ready to go wreck stuff, and that didn't happen. They lost in Baton Rouge. They lost in Knoxville. I'm just saying, sometimes you think that's the motivation. I thought that was the case for Bama that year, and they just didn't have the dudes to get it done the way they did in the past. So
I hear you on that point, and I think it could be more applicable with Georgia's schedule because it is so unbelievably brutal. I think Georgia's schedule is the only reason their win total isn't 11.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. It is among the most brutal in the country. I think they're going 11-1 anyway, but if you took out the Alabama road game or the Ole Miss road game, they might have a win total of 11.5. You gave them a Missouri schedule, I think their win total might be just set at 12. It's just you could just bet them to go 12-0 or nothing else. I think this team is that good and they're ready for it.
Well, hopefully we've scared Clint a little bit, and he's got a lot to think about. Matt, let's touch on the other big game this weekend. It is LSU. It is USC. You will be out there in Vegas. I'm actually going to be out there for that one as well. So
nice, Gordo. We'll rendezvous. We'll have cocktails.
Let's do it. Lost my ass last time I went to Vegas. So let's hope Brian Kelly doesn't lose his ass in Vegas. Give me a quick primer. You kind of gave me a thought earlier about more run game, but a little bit deeper thought on this game.
These two teams are interesting because they really are mirror images. I've joked all offseason. It's kind of like the Spider-Man gif where they're pointing at each other, the Spider-Man. I mean, that's really what this is. I mean, you're talking about teams that lose Heisman-winning quarterbacks. They're replaced by guys that are fourth-year players that started for the first time in their bowl game, threw for over 300 yards in the bowl game. Even their profiles are similar. Both quarterbacks are 6'2", 200 pounds. Both teams had historically bad defenses, replaced their entire defensive staff. You could go look at any preseason conversation about USC or LSU, redact the names of the players, the teams, and just read the context, and you wouldn't be able to tell if it was LSU or USC. So you have two teams that are very similar. The one gigantic difference really is LSU's offensive line, I think, is the best unit that either team has on the field. And so if they decide to line up behind that offensive line and run the ball and play some ball control, I think that's probably LSU's best advantage in this ball game. Boy, if they try to get into a score fest, that's dangerous territory with the Lincoln Riley offense, and I don't know that that's too favorable for LSU if they try to do that.
Yeah, and they were able to do it last year with the Heisman Trophy winner, Jane Daniels. It's a big challenge to try to do that again this year. John Neighbors, you guys almost beat LSU last year. You were in that game till the very end against the Tigers in Death Valley. Quick thought on this LSU team. Do you think that this is maybe a little bit more of a vulnerable LSU team, or do you think they bounce back this year?
I love how it just gets introduced as you almost beat that team one time. I mean, one time, then the times they're actually going to end up winning, but
you are what you are.
That's what's weird is about the greatest rivalry in the history of college football, the battle for the Golden Boot, has of course been a 3-point margin for the past 4 years. Arkansas has only won one of those, and granted, it was down in Baton Rouge when Ed Orgeron was a lame duck coach. But last year down in Baton Rouge, a 3-point game. Year before that, a really high scoring affair, 13-10, and it was just kind of been weird like that. So I don't think, even if I felt like LSU was the best team in the country, number one, I always feel like that game is going to be weird. And Arkansas, they may not win, but they're going to keep it close because they really care about that boot. And I know LSU doesn't, except for T-Bob. He's the only one that really does. So I feel like LSU is going to be a good team. Are they going to be a national championship contender? No, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to be even a playoff contender, but they're still going to be a really good team that probably gets that 9-10 win range.
All right, real quick, as we wrap up here, guys, quick, just show of hands. Do you have Georgia beating Clemson? Raise your hand. Okay, 7-0. Real quick, do you have LSU beating USC? Raise your hand. Okay, Spencer taking USC. We shall see. Spencer, you're not invited back. Thanks for coming on.
Well, it was fun while it lasted, fellas.
I would also like to say I'd pick LSU with an extreme degree of caution and skepticism. I do not think that's a runaway. I think this is like a field goal game.
The line is coming down. Game. It's like one of the only ones that's moved. Yeah. And it's moved like a
late money is sharp money, friends.
Yeah. Well, I want to see how LSU uses Harold Perkins. That is my number one question in that game.
I want to know why that boot trophy weighs 175 pounds. If you just played a 4-hour football game and you got to go lift that damn trophy, that's a tough scene. Don't give me a chore.
The Magnolia Bowl's wood shop. So
yeah, I guess.
Steve, remember when they broke it a couple of years ago? Like the damn flower fell off. They broke the trophy.
And no one gave a damn. No one cares about these fake trophies. What we do give a damn about is two other big games happening in the conference this weekend. Does Billy Napier's path to getting fired continue this weekend in a must-win game against Miami? And Mike Elko has his hands full with Notre Dame. OU and Texas, they get things going. The SEC squad talking more right after this. Today's episode presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Look, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel all throughout this summer, and they are America's #1 sports book. We got something a little different for you guys going on. Now through September 22nd, over at FanDuel, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week trial of the NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Of course, the NFL is back. You want to be watching all the action going on across the league. And of course, when you take advantage of that free trial with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Download America's #1 sportsbook today. It is FanDuel. And, of course, go visit FanDuel.com to go check out all the great odds every week across the SEC. They got every game listed, all the big matchups in conference. It is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This episode also presented to you by our friends over at Factor. And, look, you want to fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals all throughout this sports season. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you're always going to have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. And look, you can make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50. Use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. One more segment with our SEC squad as we're previewing SEC Week 1 in the conference, and a couple of big ones happening this weekend. We already touched on a couple, but how about Notre Dame at Texas A&M? It is the big one on Saturday night, and I just know this, Kyle Field and College Station are going to be rocking, but how good is Notre Dame? We kind of don't know. Marcus Freeman was thrust into this job 2 years ago. He quickly lost to Marshall. Much better season last year, but Mike Elko in year 1 coming over from Duke. Zach, you're an Auburn guy. Texas A&M it's always given you guys tough games, but what do you make of A&M and Notre Dame?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the day you ask me about how I feel about the hire of Mike Elko, but right now I think A&M, I like them against Notre Dame, and I don't know if that necessarily means anything about Notre Dame. I just like the talent that's on A&M's roster. I think, with the best team money could buy for several years, and I think this roster is still really, really talented. So I'm going with Mike Elko to get his first big win as the coach for the Aggies.
Jonathan, as our Longhorns aficionado, I know you never root for the Aggies, but Notre Dame, there's a lot of folks on the SEC side here saying we got to root for the A&M Aggies because we don't want Notre Dame coming in and stealing an at-large bid at the end of the year. So where do you fall here, Jonathan? Not saying you're going to root for the Aggies, but maybe more root against Notre Dame?
Yeah, something like that. I think Zach is right. When you look at this, team, they did lose, 4 players that were ranked, in the top 30 in the transfer portal, but still a ton of talent. This could be one of the best defensive lines in the country. I think they're still strong on the offensive line as well in the trenches. And Connor Weigman was playing really, really good football before he got injured last year. I expect him to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country. So, I guess this weekend I can, root for the SEC, even if it's the Aggies at Kyle Field. That building's going to be rocking. I'm with Zach. I think Texas A&M wins this game. Mike Elko gets his first big win at A&M.
Spencer, where do you fall on this one? I know they announced this week Notre Dame's going to start 2 freshmen and 3 sophomores on the O-line. I'm looking at that A&M defensive line. Big Nick Scorton coming in from Purdue. You got Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner. Are the Aggies defensive line just going to wreak havoc on the Notre Dame O-line?
Well, it's certainly possible. And when you go in with that sort of youth into that environment, it doesn't instill a lot of confidence on the Notre Dame side of things. I am still going with the Irish here. I'm once again the contrarian pick.
Of course you are.
Because I've got a year 3 head coach against a year 1 game 1 head coach. Continuity versus everything is brand spanking new. And I do feel better about A&M's chances because Connor Wigman's there, so you're not working in a freshman quarterback or a brand new transfer. He's got some experience, but Colin Klein comes in as the offensive coordinator, and I think Klein is incredibly capable. Oh, by the way, who did Notre Dame hire as their offensive coordinator this offseason? That's Mike Denbrock, who just coached Jaden Daniels to a Heisman Trophy. I'm a big Riley Leonard fan. I think Marcus Freeman, year 3 over Mike Elko, game 1, year 1. If you put this game in week 3, I might lean A&M. But first game, there are going to be some nerves on the Texas A&M sideline, I think, compared to what you have on Notre Dame's.
Can I just jump in here real quick? I just think Texas A&M is perennially one of the most overrated programs in the entire country. And
you're not making that up.
And what I totally agree with Spencer. You're telling me that, Mike Elko, maybe it'll work in the long run, but game 1 with all these new transfers. Hey, all systems go. Give Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame a little more credit than that. I'm a little bit shocked. Maybe this is my bias from the Big 12. Again, College Station, it's not exactly like playing in Tuscaloosa, guys. I mean, let's calm down a little bit. I like Notre Dame, too.
Sure, and I think that's an argument, no question about it. But if we're going to say overrated programs, we got to put Notre Dame in that conversation, too.
How many playoffs has Texas A&M made compared to Notre Dame, though? And
I'm with you. I don't think either of them are elite programs right now. I'm there with you.
If
Notre Dame's farther along.
If they would join a real conference, maybe they could be tested a little bit more. But this whole independent thing, you just get in if you have a good season.
Their schedule is incredibly favorable this year. Notre Dame beats Texas A&M this Saturday. They will be a college football playoff team. You can Sharpie that in if they win this game. If they lose, then it's a little bit testier. But if they win this game, they are going 10-2 at worst, and they have a great chance to go 11-1. They have about a 6-week stretch in the middle of the season where they don't play a true road game, which is wild, but that's the way they've made it work.
This is what I want to ask Spencer and, I guess John Miller. Obviously, we know Mike Elko is in, game 1 at Texas A&M. But what exactly has Marcus Freeman done at Notre Dame that just makes us think that he's going to dominate this coaching matchup on Saturday?
Well, it's a totally fair question. I just think if you're giving me a couple 2.5 points or giving me plus 126, I'm going to go that way. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it.
I don't look at Notre Dame over the last couple of years. Yeah, it got off to a terrible start, but last year, would you describe Notre Dame as some horribly awful, no good, very bad team? Did it feel like they were a disaster, chaos? No, it felt like they took a step forward from Marcus Freeman's first year. And when you are a young, unproven head coach, that's what I look for, to have confidence in you to make a pick like this. So I saw improvement from year 1 to year 2. I love the offensive coordinator hire, love the quarterback move. I stick with the Irish.
Jay Smith?
So me personally, I'm riding with Texas A&M on this. I feel like we overlooked this portion of it. Mike Elko's returning back to Texas A&M. This isn't his first stint there, right? He had a 2-year stint at Duke as a head coach, cool. But a lot of those recruits at Texas A&M, he recruited them there. So he knows a lot more of the players than a lot of us are giving him credit for. He's going to walk in there, refine things back to when he was there, even though, Jimbo Fisher, did what he does best. But he's going to be able to have that continuity or at least some type of rapport with these players because he brought a lot of them in. So I'm on Texas A&M actually surprising everybody that they're a lot better their first game than expected.
And I'll say this, John Miller, I've been in the college stage. Kyle Field is way better now than it was maybe 10 years ago. It's a lot louder. They've added more seating, so I'll give them that. It is more of a rocking atmosphere. And look, they're going to have college game day. You got all the, it's going to be a huge to-do on campus all day long, and those fans will be fired up. They'll bring out Lassie, or Revelry as we call her, and it'll be a lot of fun. All right, the other big game, and again, I don't think we're talking enough about Florida hosting Miami, guys, but for Billy Napier, this is a must win for him. He has to win this game knowing what's on the backstretch of the schedule. And I feel like Miami's gotten all this hype. Look, they've bought recruits. They've bought guys through the transfer portal, Cam Ward at quarterback. But are we talking enough about what Florida's got? Graham Mertz is back at quarterback. They got the 5-star DJ Lagway behind him. They got Montrell Johnson at running back. Like, I feel like Florida's going, maybe we're being a little bit disrespected here, that everybody's talking about us having the toughest schedule in the world, but we're actually got a pretty good team.
I agree with you. I think that's a great take. And to me, if you're looking at anybody who's a slight underdog at home, especially in a place like the Swamp against a traditional rival like Miami, you don't think the Gainesville is going to be popping that night? That is going to be a tough place for anybody to play. And in this modern world of college football, of course, traditionally, every first game is weird. I think it's even weirder in a world where you have so much roster turnover. So I like the Gators in that spot. I really do.
I think for me,
good, Jay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for me, what's going to be most interesting about this game is they both have a very high, as you would say, blue chip ratio. I think Florida's sitting here at 63%, Miami is 61%. So it's going to be a lot of good players playing, especially with all the pressure on both coaches' back. This game is kind of critical for both of them. I think the loser of this game is going to have the trajectory of getting fired by around, the second bye week, because we all know that both of those seats are very hot because they've got too much talent to be as bad as they've been the last couple of years. Now, I'm picking Miami in this game because I just think Cam Ward is really good. I think he's probably one of the better quarterbacks out there. He's probably one of the best ones to come out of the portal. And whenever he's hot, he's on point. Now, it's going to be about Florida trying to force the turnovers, which he's, kind of susceptible to doing. But if Miami does a really good job of controlling the turnovers and controlling the time, they should win this game.
I don't think I agree on the level of pressure being equal between the two head coaches. Mario Cristobal has less pressure, though certainly there is a hope, a desire for him to win going into year 3. I think it is a much higher pressure gauge on Billy Napier because of how his record is going to look at the end of the year. Making a bowl game would be a tremendous accomplishment, whereas Miami is looking at conference championship, college football playoff appearance. That's the standard. So a bad year for Miami is 8-4. A bad year for Florida is 4-8. 8-4 would be a second straight year of improvement for Mario Cristobal in Coral Gables, and I don't think gets him fired, though it would be disappointing relative to their season expectation with that Pac-12 backfield that they've got.
But why is the pressure not enough on? I mean, Cristobal went 5-7 and 7-6. I mean, it's a mirror image of what Billy Napier's kind of done. And oh, by the way, Miami, blew a monster game. What was that? Last year or the year before, where they didn't
decide not to kneel.
Yeah, decide not to kneel.
That was last year. Yeah, that was last year.
That to me adds to his pressure and him being kind of on fire, because this is the second time that's happened in Mario Cristobal's career as a head coach. That's unexcusable. If you know
Thank
that
you
you're
for bringing up that
game,
wonderful memory, Jay. I appreciate that.
My apologies. I'm just saying, if that's the thing, that's to me is what adds to the fire of his seat, is that people are starting to believe that he's incompetent. And so, yes, conference championship should be in their radar, but if they go 7-5, maybe 8-4, there's a good chance to be like, you know what? It doesn't feel like you've got a good grasp of what you need to do to win here.
He got a big contract. I think he would be pretty solidly set into having one more year. I think what he does this year affects the warmness of his seat going into next year. I don't think there's a world, barring a 3-9 season, which is not going to happen, where Mario Cristobal gets canned.
Well, at least Miami, they've got John Ruiz writing the checks. Hey, how many more millions do you need to buy a quarterback? In Florida, they're getting sued because they didn't follow through with paying their recruits. So quite the different worlds there at Florida, Miami. All right, real quick, guys, show of hands. Do you have A&M beating Notre Dame? Put your hand up. Okay, so we got about 4-2. On the other side, Miami and Florida. Do you have the Florida Gators beating Miami? Okay, 5-1. So pretty good there. It should be a good weekend for the SEC. And to be honest, guys, the SEC needs this. We started off on a rough, sour note out of the gates last year. Florida loses to Utah. LSU loses to Florida State. Everybody's going, what's wrong with the SEC? They need to come out strong this weekend. Final thoughts, Zach, as we wrap up?
Yeah, like I said at the top of this, I think it's going to be a huge, huge weekend for the SEC. I don't know if they go 4-0 in these big games that we've talked about, but I do think it's 3-1 or better.
John Miller.
You know, I just want to say, even though I picked Notre Dame, as a Missouri fan, I hope Texas A&M wins, because I'd like to see basically anybody outside of the conference, including Miami. Maybe that's the biased toward Florida. If I'm going to be on the fringe of the playoff, I want all these other fringe teams to look mediocre in the ACC and the Big 12. Get them out of here. That's my thought.
It is a real life Game of Thrones, and we're all pushing everybody down. We're all trying to climb up and get in that 12-team playoff. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Always fun to talk all things SEC with you guys, and appreciate you guys taking the time. All right, thanks again to our panel of hosts and our SEC squad, as we call it. A reminder to follow and subscribe to your favorite SEC team. We'll be covering your favorite teams every day throughout the season. Do not forget, I'll have you covered on the entire conference every day with Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team